안녕하세요, 여러분. 이름은 Florian입니다. So thank you for being here today. I will present to you Storybook. A bit first about myself. My name is Florian Ludo. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Inc. I'm born and raised in France. I lived 4 years in Japan, and I recently came to Seoul, South Korea. So a month. So yeah, that's why I only know like, hi, my name is, and that's pretty much it for now. I've been working with dev and design teams for more than 8 years, and you can ping me anytime on florianLDT.com or on social media at FlorianLDT. So who is this talk for? So it's for designers. I don't know if you guys here, some of you are designers, but if you do, this is for you. We will talk about Figma, and we will talk about design principles. It is for front-end developers because there will be a bunch of code. So, and it's also for team leaders and project managers because I will put the emphasis into collaborations. And it's for everyone curious about design and development and everything in between. So before starting, every underlying text that you will see in this presentation, every images, every demo have links to their resources. So later when you come back home, you can check and like review what we will be talking about. So yeah, every underlying text, every images, every demo, you can check that later. The talk is recorded, at least we are trying to. So again, I read it later. Yeah, and later you can check that. All material provided is open source, so you got everything we'll be talking about. You can prepare your questions because at the end we will have the Q&A session. So if your question is in English, then you can directly ask me, but if it's in Korean, we'll find a way, probably that way, to answer that at the end. We have a lot of things to cover in a short time, so let's get going. And most importantly for you guys, and I hopefully enjoy the talk. So this is the agenda for today. So we will cover everything from what is Storybook, why you should care, preparing the design to be implemented on Storybook, the deployment of the Storybook, preparing your component library, and integrating this component library. And along the way for each section, I will give best practices and tips for you guys that I collected along the years. So first, what's Storybook? I have nothing more to say that actually what is written on the website because they are doing a great job to introduce what is it. So Storybook is a front-end workshop for building UI components and pages in isolation. So throughout the talk, we will get deeper into what it means and how we can do that. Why care? So storybooks allow you to use the component-driven development approach. So it's an approach where you can isolate your UI from the business logic so you can be more proficient into development. You don't have to care about the business logic whatsoever. It's also, the Storybook will act as the component documentation. So it's one source of truth of the component documentation that you can share with your peers. It allows you to involve all stakeholders as soon as possible. So developers, designers, PMs, everyone can talk around this Storybook. It also helps you to improve testing, and as I said before, is something very important in the core of Storybook, allowing you to isolate UI from the business logic. And everything here lets you iterate on your product quickly, and it allows you to save time and money. And for like I've heard, even though my current is not perfect, that a lot of you guys are working for startups. So the goal of the startups is to save money and time and release the project as much as possible to iterate on it. So this is how you can do it very efficiently. So preparing the design. So quick poll here was about that book. Yeah, is it in, like, do we translate that? Or
Kind of.
I'm just like, can you raise your hand if you know about that?
아시죠? 이 책에 대한 손 들어달라고.
The book or the atomic design principle? Okay. So that's nice. So for people who don't know about that, the atomic design principle introduced by Brad Frost in 2013. It's a methodology for creating design systems. So now when I introduce design systems, then maybe more people react. It has been originally composed of 5 distinct levels, and throughout the years, it has been extended to 6. So for people who know about atomic design, I totally recommend to read the book that the guy who created it wrote. Highly recommended. And so maybe if you don't know the atomic design name, you might know about those 6 levels. So design tokens, moving atoms, moving up to molecules, moving up to organisms, templates, pages. So in order to discuss one by one, let's start the first demo. So for that, let's jump to Figma. So the Figma is provided to you. Maybe some of you guys already have the links. So on this Figma, I will go through each level, but first I will start by, it's not common, but I will start with the last level. The reason is I want to introduce what we'll be building today. So this is why I'm talking about the pages first. So at the end of the day, we will build the component library for this design. So the reason why I'm using this design is this is not the first time I'm doing the talk, and the first time I did it, it was from a request that community who wanted to know more about the job page. The reason why I picked that job page is because it is really well made. Used with Storybook, because you have like a lot of components. You can already see that on that page. It's not like a landing page where everything is very creative. Here, there is a lot of structure, so it's a good example for us. So we have a header, we have a hero, we have a list of jobs, 2 lists of jobs, and a button here. And this is available for both mobile and desktop, so 2 breakpoints here. So let's start the first level. So tokens. So tokens here are that you cannot really use by themselves. They have to be combined. They have to be used by upper level components. So here we will find the colors. We'll find. If you guys know designers, sometimes you might be like frustrated because some designer, they give you showing some colors and say, okay, do something with this. As someone who do a bit of both and actually trying to apply logic to design, if you guys can talk to your designer, because everything can be resolved, ask them to provide namings. So I'm not just giving the color, I'm also giving what is the exact decimal value and also the name of the color. Because this is something that, as developers, we can be very, like naming things is our main problem. So I guess you agree. If from the designer you receive already the name of your component, then you will save a lot of time because you don't have to think about that. Figma is not a developer tool, so if we can reduce the number of time we have to go to Figma, double click to go down, the component, the file tree, and to find exactly, okay, check the color, then it's just 1 second, but 1 second multiplied by 1,000, that's a lot of time. So here, provide naming and hexadecimal values, moving to breakpoints. We have here clear representation of our 3 breakpoints, the name here again, and some comment about what the mean width is. So from mobile and up, tablet and up, and the laptop and up. We also have the elevation. So when you over some components. You might have like a shadow behind it with some elevation behavior. So we have this in the token. So now moving to atoms. So atoms are components that cannot be broken down even further. And so, for example, we might have the typography here, because you will see that in the design component, the design library, those are actually atoms. Here again, some help that if you are a designer or if you are working with designer closely, tell your designer to represent hidden spacing. So if I see this design here, for example, I might have to drill down the component to actually see if I have some padding or not. But here it makes total sense. Like I'm seeing that, okay, those red rectangles here, they're simulating some top and bottom padding. You can also see the value here. So there is no miscommunication. The name here again, so this is helping a lot developers. And if you are a designer and you do this, your developers will love you very much. So we have the labels, we have the paragraph as well with those red rectangles. Moving to a component that most design should have, buttons. So here buttons are available in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. If we take one, available in 3 different shapes: square shape, a rounded shape, and a pillar shape. And if we go into one shape, we will find that each shape has 3 kinds: so primary kind, secondary kind, a ghost kind, and different state: normal state, hover state, press state, disabled, and loading. So we also here have badges, same with kind and shapes, thumbnails, 3 shapes, 3 sizes, and here it's a very simple logo, so I can put it directly into my atoms. Moving to molecules. So molecules are aggregations of multiple atoms. So here we have the header available 2 breakpoints. So here again we have this rectangle to actually show what are the available, so we don't have to drill down, or you can also, as a designer, you can also put comment, but every developer will understand. It's very clear. Something that makes more sense here, so the job list item. So we have here an aggregation of multiple atoms. So we have the placeholders that we found, the thumbnail about in the atom section, 2 labels, and also a badge. And we can see that it's available in 3 shapes, but also we have 2 states: the normal state and when you hover that list item. Moving now to organisms. So organisms are aggregations of molecules, atoms, or also sections of your design. So for the section of the design here, we got our hero section. And example that is specialized for developers. They don't even have to care about that part. They will just see, okay, makes sense. We have this bottom padding here, this padding here, this padding, and then makes perfect sense. Here again, and aggregation of different molecules. We have and atoms. We have here the job list. So the job list in aggregation of two job list item, optional button here, and available in 2 different breakpoints: the less desktop enough and the desktop enough. So for you developers, that makes perfect sense. And here again, all the marks the developers will understand and implement quickly. No need to go back and forth with the designers for meaningless things like that. Then moving to templates. So templates here, we start our final design, but we don't have real data. We have placeholders as the page, but every text, every image replaced by here again we have and the page, going back to what I presented before, the real-time data for the data that if a user go to your website, that is it for the first demo. So best practices and tips. Don't forget, easy to forget, component states. For example, the disable state, the loading state. How many times your designer are giving you those components, but they forget some important states like disabled, loading, and such. And obviously, when you see this, you will start as developers. You say, okay, I forgot again that in development, nothing goes well, so you don't provide the state when everything is 200. Like, there is a lot of states that when it's loading, when there is an error, when it's empty, for example. So many times designers forget about that. Document as much as possible. So with those rectangles, like the color hexadecimal values or everything that will save time for you guys at your company. You might have other and this allow you to avoid as much cognitive overhead for developers during the handoff. So the handoff is when the designers give the developers. So everything we've been talking is to reduce. If they forget some state, you have to knock at the door of designers, or you forget that, so they work, and then you forget that. So everything is here is to avoid as much problem as possible and not waste time, and involve stakeholders in your design process. So as a designer, even as developers, don't be afraid to talk to designers. Many times I come to the designers and I say, this doesn't make sense, or it's too hard to do, especially in a startup where we want to release fast. For designer that have no experience in development, it's as easy as dragging and dropping rectangles and such. But many times in the development process, it's harder than that. But they might not know it. So if nobody's telling them, oh, instead of doing that, let's do this, it will cut the time by half, they will never know. So don't hesitate to say that there is a better or faster way to do that, especially in a startup. Okay. So now that we have the design ready, and it will be easier to implement our storybook. So here for the installations, nothing really complicated. One key here is you don't initialize storybook right away. Before installing storybook, you have to create your project. So the reason is storybook is available for Angular, React, Vue, and so on. And you first have to create your CRUG app, your Vue app. And when you install storybook, the command will analyze which framework you are using and create all the repository and all the file that you need to actually create your components right away. So this is why you never initialize from scratch. You first create your project, and then inside your project, you initialize. So let's see the demo. I want to show you guys what the final storybook looks like, and then we will go in more detail how we can display components in this way. So you guys also have this is local, but you do have already, if you have the slides in advance, the link to the online storybook. So exactly the same thing. So here I just have a quick introduction. This is just using the README of the project, nothing more. So,
when I go there, it's 404.
Really? Okay, so I might have to.
404 뜻이요.
Yeah.
네.
It's my bad. So here, I'm representing everything using the folders, tokens, atoms, molecules, following what we've seen in the Figma file. In real life, it will be, the structure will be different. You will pretty much have just one component folder if you know other big books, but in this case, it's an introduction, so I wanted to follow what we have on the design, so it's easy for people to just go check my file, check the storybook, and see the exact same structure here. So going to the others, you can zoom a little. Moving to the buttons, we have different shapes, square, rounded, and circle. Moving to the typography, exactly as the Figma is showing. So typography, as we've seen, molecules. So we have where we have our header, our job list item. We can see the elevation, square, rounded. The good thing is by changing just one property, we can act on the children's. So when I change the job list item shape, I'm also changing all the children components. So the thumbnails and the badge in this case. Moving to organisms, we have our hero page and the job list item. Different shapes, rounded, peel. Also something that your designer must not give you, because in this case, what happens if we have an odd number of jobs? This design makes sense, but you know, designers sometimes they come up with crazy things, and that might not be what they want. So, ask them to provide like intermediary states, like what if, and more than that, what happens if there is no job for this category? This is an easy state to forget, but that will be really better than having just a white screen below, nothing. This is the mistake. Have this optional button. Moving to templates. So as we said, this is where we see the placeholder, and then moving to the page. This is our page with the actual data. So something that I want to show you now is what storybooks give you for free. And so if I go here to the page, I can go here and toggle multiple viewport. So this is for free, so it makes sense with this page. So we can toggle how does it look like when it is using this device, or how it looks like when we use. I was zooming. Okay, I was scared about. So yeah, on the iPad. So I here that I have my two breakpoints. First, one column on the mobile, and when we move to the iPad, we can see that it's jumping to two columns. So my breakpoints are working well. Don't need to use like resize the browser or whatever. It works right here. Something more than we have for free. The measurement. So pretty much as Figma can have, you can also here preview multiple measurements, check that everything is as you need. Something that if you are doing, like, you want to provide your service for as much users as possible, and you want to experiment, we always think that, okay, our service can be seen by everyone, but actually people have different conditions. For example, I wear glasses, so if I take off my glasses, I will see none of you. You will be like blurry, like on TV when they don't want to show the face. And actually, this is a condition that is shared by many people. Many people have glasses, and directly in Storybook, by clicking this plugin here, you can simulate so how people with this kind of condition will preview the website. So you are basically viewing the website as I would do if I took off my glasses. But there are other conditions, for example, the colors. Every people is the same colors as you do. And in my design, I'm using a lot of grayscale, so it's not very impactful, but you can see that here I've got a lot of colors in the logos. And if we go and check that part, you can see that colors are changing. So some people, if you use too much colors, some people might see your website differently, or maybe they cannot use it. So this is very important that you can test everything here. Moving to a component that we use a lot, the buttons. So if on this, you can see that what I like to do is providing so-called static stories. So stories where you can the props are only read-only. So you cannot play with them. So you can just check, okay, there is a children prop, there is a disabled prop, which is Boolean, default value is false, and so on. You can see the action right in Storybook. You don't have to open the Chrome console and go to the something that is cool as well, same for the accessibility feature that I showed before. You can see if your components, they violate accessibility rules. It's not the case for things is passing fine, but I know that one of my components, the job list item, is violating one of the accessibility rules. So if I go in detail, it's written that this element has insufficient color contrast. So they are telling me that this bottom padding here, the one in gray, I might do a better job if I increase the color, like reach a darker color, so more people will see. Actually, something cool as well that is given for almost free is you can have both Figma and the Storybook and Figma at the same time. So here you can have in sync your Figma file, so your collaborators, your peers, they don't even have to open Figma. This is right here, so they can just check, oh, the Figma, there is those kind. Does it looks like that everything is covered? And yeah, so I provide static stories, but at the end of every component, I like to provide what I called, but I didn't set the name. Many people use that approach. I use a sandbox component. I only put one component, but now the stakeholders, people that are working with me, they can play with the component by changing the content, changing like toggling the disabled, how does it looks like, the ease loading as well, like toggling both, and see if everything makes sense. The kinds as well, the sizes. So the stakeholders, they can play and say, oh, this is great, or we need more. Okay. Now that we've seen how it looks like into Storybook, let's see the code. So again, I'm sorry, I'm a big Vim user. Yeah. That's, so when you install Storybook, you will have access to the command with this folder, so the Storybook folder. So this is where I put my the stories related to the design tokens. But for this project, I'm using a style component. And when you work with your design tokens, they will have take place as they will be part of your theme. So here you see I have my breakpoints, my colors, my elevations. Everything is part of my style component theme that I can reuse later. On the Storybook folder, You also have your main.js, where you tell specifically to Storybook where to find the stories file, because this structure is different from the structure when you install Storybook. So you might have stories in some other files or with different names. So this is where you specify, you tell Storybook, okay, the stories here. So in that case, in the Storybook directory, but also in the SRC file, if you find a stories.js or stories.js, JS6, TS, TSX, I use it to build the Storybook. And here you provide some add-ons, so some external. You have those that are given for free, the first 3 ones, and the last one. But one more here is the Storybook add-on design, and this is the plugin that allows you to have the Figma files preview inside. And you have to install a separate library to have access to it. So let's see just one component. So I'm using TypeScript here, so you guys can see everything with the types beautifully. So the different props that the buttons might have, the different styles. So depending on what is the kind, some specific CSS here. And if we go to, so same for the size, if it's small, use this padding, this font size, if it's medium, and so on. Same for the shape, just playing with the border radius here. Then here you have the global style for my button, so the style that is shared with all the buttons, whatever the size, the kind. So it's a very simple button with those extra props. So nothing really complex. The only part maybe is you have this is loading boolean. So if it's loading, then just show the text loading. You might use like a spinner. You might use whatever you like. And if it's not loading, then you just display the children's. And if we then move to the stories, so this file is where you actually tell Storybooks how do you want your component to be illustrated on Storybook. So common props that are shared for all the components. Here you have this default export where you say, this is the type of my story. This is the component that in that story, the common props that we are sharing here. This is where for the add-on that is previewing the Figma files, you just create an object, and this is a design array, and you just put, it's a bit Figma because it works also with Sketch and Adobe XD correctly. The name that will appear on Storybook and the URL. Here I just have like multiple arrays of the different shape and size, and for the static story, just to every shape, every size to display my component. And I just use just put the different size here. Same for secondary, same for the ghost, using the sizes, using sizes here. The ghost kind is put here. Same for loading, same for disabled. And here at the end, this is where we see the sandbox. So in order to create a sandbox, you first declare a template. So I create a template of my button. And the args are all the properties that I want to play with. And Storybook will understand that in that case, they are not read-only, but I actually want to interact with the different props. So not very difficult. That's it about. We are online, yeah. just so best practices and tips here. So if you want to do like me, or if there is other rules in your company, provide static and sandbox stories. So stories that people cannot play with, and at the end, stories that people can play with. Document your storybook as much as possible. You can also, one thing that I didn't mention here on the storybook is, So for the buttons, we here have the docs tab where we can have actually a one-pager of all the components that we are using, and here we can add like a markdown, even more documentation if you, and it's recommended. Test the accessibility right into your stories, so by the plugin that I've shown you, and check that it's not violating any accessibility rules right away. You don't have to actually develop and check on the browser. You can directly check in Storybook. So if you know Storybook and you know other storybooks that are out there, you might not see the templates and the pages implemented on those ones. The reason is when you start to move into templates, this is where most of the business logic might be integrated. So it's quite difficult to do templates and pages without the business logic. So if you know, guys, if you know about the IBM Carbon or more, they just show you buttons, a carousel, like badges, because after that, because they make it public, they cannot cover everyone's needs. Storybook is not made to implement business logic. So this is why I wanted to show you guys that it's possible, but in most projects, you cross the line when you implement templates. So this is why templates usually not implemented in Storybook. And again, involve the shareholders in your development process, designers, constantly talk with your peers. It's very, very important to just check that there is no miscommunication, something that you thought you understood well, but actually that's not the case. And you don't want this to happen at the end. So you release the final website and then you just that that's not what they needed. So that's a shame. So now that we implemented Storybooks, it's time for the deployment. So here we have multiple choices. We have Chromatic, which is made by the same team as Storybook. We also have, because at the end of the day, when you build a Storybook, it's just a static website. So you can upload it, you can host it in every provider that support static files. So GitHub Pages, AWS3, and there is plenty more, Vercel and so on. But in that case, I want to show you guys about a Chromatic because there is a couple of more things that you can do that is given for free on Chromatic that you will not find on other hosting providers. So first, it's very easy to set up. You can publish private or public storybooks without any configuration. All your storybooks will be in one place, so you don't have to check, okay, what's the link and so on. You have a nice Git style review and merge them for your UI. It's very good for collaboration, and it allows you to run regression testing on your UI components. So to deploy Chromatic here again, very easy. You just run npm chromatic --save dev, so you just install the dev dependency. You go to chromatic.com, you create an account, they will give you your project token, and then you can run npx storybook --project token with the project token that you enter, and you're good to go. So let's see why, like all the things that Chromatic is giving. So I'm going to zoom a little. So here I have 3 builds. We will talk about the build. We will not talk about build 2 because I just changed the README here, so nothing important. But there is a new build that's different from all the talk that I've been giving because some person asked a very nice question, something that I didn't cover, and I wanted to give more explanation on that. So when you first deploy to Chromatic, so as I said, Chromatic works a little bit like GitHub. So when you deploy, you first have to check, am I getting this component change? But when it's the first commit, for example, obviously you accept everything because you don't have anything before, so you have nothing to compare it to. So in that case, no problem accepting everything. When you move to the library, we have here the as we had on local, the different components. Here, the breakpoints and so on. Also the atoms. So if I click here, that's the link I should probably update with the change that I made. So here you now have a link that you can share with the people, and they will see your storybook with the exact same storybook that we had on local, but now you can share it with everyone you want. Something that you have to be aware of is storybooks on Chromatic. They are private by default. So you want to share it to your collaborators, you just add their on Chromatic. But if you want to share to everyone, like with the public link, don't forget to toggle this private boolean, like this private info here, to public. And for the build number 3, so one thing that I wanted to say is, people was asking me, oh, but you are talking about it's good for like testing, but I'm actually not showing how, because I just had this first build, so there were nothing to compare. So I said, okay. So I created this branch here, snapshot testing. So this branch will never be merged, but it's just to illustrate what is giving. So on here, it's a very that's not what I want. Very simple thing to do. So here, what I'm doing is just doubling the border radius just to create some difference. That's it. So multiplying the border radius by 2 and changing my, I think before it was, I don't remember the exact color. I cannot read exact decimal, but yeah, it was different. So then when I went to Chromatic, we got that build 3, and here we have 13 changes, and we can now review changes. So when we review changes, that was the previous color, and now this is the one we have. So if I'm not very happy, I can just comment, so the peers, they can see, okay, we can have a discussion about, oh, this shouldn't have changed, why it has changed, and so on. You can also like have discussions, and you have a lot of different tools that you can use to enhance the review. So do the button here. So we have here, but I'm actually, I just changed the border radius, so it's quite difficult to actually see what has changed. So here I have a couple of, I say, okay, yeah, so now I see, and I can use the zoom to see, okay, if I zoom a little, you can see you have some green part. So this is, it's barely perceptible, but yeah, it's people can actually see where is it. If you like discotheques, where is it? Let me bring the color. So here you see, like, if you are very blind, you can see that, okay, that's here that the change is. If it was like very difficult to see. So yeah, a couple of things that GitHub pages and AWS S3 or whatever, they will not give you, because you will just host the static website. But this is the same team that has been building Storybook, so they are giving you a lot of things for free here. And when everything is done, you say, okay, that's what I wanted to do. I'm just accepting all the changes, and then this is merged to my default Storybook. Okay. So over here, best practices and tips around the deployment. Storybooks are private by default, so again, if you want to share it with other people, don't forget to set them to public. You have 5,000 free snapshots per month, which is quite a lot. And if you need more, you will have to move to the paid plan. So everything I've been showing is free so far. I recommend you to sync the Chromatic project with the GitHub repo, so the code part and the UI is in sync. And so I've just been using like npx Chromatic manually on the console, but we are good developers, so usually you don't do it like that. Deploying to Chromatic is part of your continuous integration pipeline. So let's say I merge my code to master or to QA, then I deploy to Chromatic. You don't do it by hand like that. Now that the deployment is done, we are almost there. Time to publish the component library. So first you choose, do you want to publish a public or a private library? In my case, I want you guys to try it out. So it's a public one. It's also easier to do. What we'll be using is Rollup.js, which is a JavaScript bundler, mostly used for bundling libraries. And we will publish to the npm package. So here, maybe see it in a bigger format on the on your slides. In order to work, a rollup needs a configuration file. And because I'm using TypeScript here, what I want to do is transpile my TypeScript code to JavaScript. So as input, I'm just saying the input here is the index file. So if I quickly show you what is it, the index file is just the file where I'm referencing all my components. So then I know the bundler know what code it should transpile. And I'm saying that as output, I want to generate two formats, the CommonJS format and the ES format. So we never want to publish as TypeScript because many people are just using vanilla and the browser understands vanilla JavaScript. So we need to transpile into JavaScript. And as in plugins, because I'm using TypeScript, I'm using the TypeScript plugin, just using the build TS config. I'm saying that I want the types to also be carried. And as the external, so this is the one that is a bit more tricky. So when you release a library, you have pure dependencies. So in that case, I have React and style component. Why it's a pure dependency? It's because it's the role of the consumer of my library to actually install React, because if they want to use it, they will mostly have React. And in order to not have a conflict between version and so on, you always declare React and style component as pure dependencies, and you also might control the version. So that means that when you transpile, when you create your library, you don't import React and style component. So it will be the role of the consumer to install it at the same time. And you just run rollup.c rollup config.ts with the plugin. And then if you are already logged in the console with npm, just run npm publish, and your library is on npm for people to download. Best practices for publishing the library. So first question is, should you really publish the library? That might be overkill. If yes, do you want a public or a private library? Like, do you want this to be accessible for everyone, or is it just a library for your organization? So in that case, it will be a private library. I recommend you to use TypeScript. It's good for developer experience. If you use TypeScript, you never want to go back to vanilla JavaScript. Or you can code in JavaScript, but provide the types for people that are using TypeScript to feel happy, so to speak. Document your library, README, comments, write tests, and provide code coverage, and also changelog to keep track of the changes. If your consumer has to update, and they might know, oh, is this version impacting me a lot? Yes. And now that it's published, it's time for the integration. So very quickly, we can just run npm tk creative kit and style component if it was not installed before. So as it's a dependency. So if the person that is integrating a library already installed, it's not needed. But in our case, let's say I install style component. So in order to use that library, I have to install it. Same for Yarn. And we have here a quick example of how to integrate the button that we just built. And yeah, you have also the integration repo where you can check when you can see how I'm integrating the page, the full page of our applications. Very simple. Just one best practices and tips around the integration. So if it's the first time and you don't really know if your integration, especially with TypeScript, if you actually bundle everything correctly, instead of publishing to npm, installing and see, oh, I fucked up, just use npm link. So you don't have to publish to npm. So you just link it locally. You can test, is everything all right? Your trans file is good. So then you can publish. So it will avoid you to have like v0.1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, just because you fucked up multiple times. That's especially in the beginning. I did it, so this I recommend you to do that. And final keys and takeaways. So it's for both designers and developers. I recommend you to study the Human Interface Guidelines for the web, for Apple, and for Android. It will make you a better developer, a better designer, onboard and communicate with others early on. So from the very beginning through the end, you just don't do it in the beginning and then you don't talk to them anymore. It's repetitively every week or so. Get in touch with them and ask if you are going to the right direction. So Storybook is a living document. So the Storybook I'm just showing is pretty small. You might know other ones that are very bigger, but you have to start somewhere. Maybe some of you guys, they want to know how to do it. So you will start small with one button, a badge, and then you will have like all your components. So don't be scared to start small. Yeah, so the goal of this talk, if you didn't know, is for you to start using Storybook, but for new. But if you have also an existing project, just install Storybook. Again, start with one button and show that to your stakeholders. They will love it, so they will say, okay, let's do more. And company storybooks. Again, what I'm showing here is the bare minimum, and you have like that I will present just after a lot more solid storybooks that you can start. And again, get your hands dirty. It's not complicated. Start it. Small, one button, one badge, and you will be good in no time. To learn more, so here you got the Figma file that you can check. You got the component library and the Storybook repo. You also have the slides. This is just the PDF, so it's not the Korean version. The Storybook preview, so this is the link that I have to change. The page and the integration repo, everything is here. And as I said, for bigger storybooks, check SAP, Microsoft, check IBM Carbon, and another one that I like, but this one is not using Storybook, but I still recommend to check it out because library is awesome. Check the Atomic Design methodology. There is a link where you can learn about the methodology. And the only thing that is out there, you have Pattern Lab, React Cosmos, Ladle, but Storybook is the most famous one. So yeah, thank you, and ready for the Q&A. Share mic or one? Yeah.
네, 질문 영어로 하실 거 있으시면 영어로. 네. 이분도 그래서 부탁드립니다. 대충 얘기해도 대충 알아듣습니다.
영어로 한글로 뭐 아, 네. 지금 데모에서는 그 스타일링 툴을 스타일 컴포넌트 하나만 쓰고 있는데 혹시 여러 개 쓰는 환경에서도 스토리북 적용 가능한지 좀 궁금합니다. 뭐 예를 들면 스타일 컴포넌트랑 이모션을 같이 쓰고 있는 환경이라든지. 네.
No.
For example, you want to use style component and emotion at the same time. Can he use Storybook?
Yeah, Yeah, I think you can keep it. Yeah, you can use everything in here. One file that I didn't show on the storybook folder is this preview.js. This is where I'm using style component. So by default, storybook doesn't understand how to display style component. So here I'm just integrating as I would do in my integration. So if you use style component, you have this global style here, and you have this with global style our function, and this is a story that will be passed by storybook, and I'm just putting all the stories with the global style. So storybook will understand that I'm just displaying my style with storybook with the stories. So if you are using style component, it will not work right away. You just need that, as you would need if you develop using style component. If you use, like, if you have a create React app with the style component, it will not work like that. You still need that piece of code in the app to make to declare your global style and so on. And with emotion, it is exactly the same. You put the configuration with emotion in the preview.js, so that storybook will understand that for every story that you want to display, you use emotion, you use style component. And yeah, one thing that I forgot is here, for the custom previews that I showed, you have just three previews that are just small, medium, and large. But it's very easy to extend the preview here. So you just give like a big array of things, and you give it viewport here, and that's it. It's a decorator. Storybook call it a decorator. So this is, if you use emotion, you will declare your style component decorator, and we have it here with global style and with theme as well.
It depends on the decorator.
Yeah. And if we
show
go,
very first slide.
And if we go here, when people are familiar with style component, this is how you do that in your create React app code. So you do this in preview. This is just for storybook to know how to deal with style component, emotion, and everything. You don't need that if you use CSS or just normal CSS. Maybe not, because it's storybook supports it. But for things like style component or emotion, it's just as you would do in your normal app. You just have to explain storybook in the preview how to use the correct style, like and that will definitely work. And you can even have like style component, emotion at the same time as you would in your normal app.
Can you show me the uses of decorators? Where the decorator is?
So yeah, so I have the with time decorator. So if you just if we just go to here, so on the integration part, this is great style component into your project. So you have your global style, so your reset.css.
When you emotion import that thing, what kind of create global style?
I've never used emotion, so I'm actually not sure how you initialize it. But there should be no problem.
With global style, with another global style with emotion.
Okay. So this is same as, but do you have any initializer with the?
Maybe same thing.
Yeah. So if it's same.
style provider.
Yeah, global style. I think I got it. So yeah, exactly the same way.
Okay.
저 하나만 그 보통 테스트라고 하면은 초록불이 뜨고 빨간 제스트에 좀 익숙하잖아요.
Just that I.
스토리북도 약간 제스트처럼 빨간 불, 파란 불이 뜨게끔 테스트를 할 수가 있을지.
Can Storybook test like just IO that there's the green line. Okay. You know, just have a testing tool. That in the result there's a green and red line.
You're thinking about the UI or the code?
웹사이트
로직적인
같은.
것도 있을 거고, UI적인 것도 있을 거고, 뭐 여기 픽셀은 이거 해야 되는데 지금 뭐 15픽셀로 줄어들었다, 뭐 이런 스토리도 있을 수도 있고.
그 코드로 원하시는 거. 아까 보여줬던 그 비슷한 거를 생각하시는.
스냅샷보다도 약간 스토리에 대해서 그 뭐
네.
사용자가 로그인 아닐 때는 빨간색이 떠야 되는데 검수는 그거 바뀌었다. 이런 스토리 라인이 약간 한 줄 한 줄 이렇게 읽어가면서 자동 테스트 같은 거 할 수 있을지.
Kind of automatic testing.
Yeah.
Can I say that with the story?
Yeah, you can do it.
일단 뭐 싶다.
Yeah, you don't have to use just the UI, and you can use like automatically in your CI pipeline. You can test with Jest and UI snapshot. I think this is what you've been talking about. So yeah, you can do it.
그러면 보통 그 컴포넌트 테스트를 하실 때 스토리북이랑 제스트랑 둘 다 쓰는 편인지.
When you do component tests, you are testing both like Jest and the storybook.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, because when you use Jest, you want to test things like the internals, maybe some functions, more into the code. But storybooks allow you to test the UI itself. So as we've seen with the green part and the design change, the color change. So you can do this with storybook. But then if you use Jest just for the code, you use a function, and the function, you have your unit test for your component. You have unit test, and you have like UI snapshot, UI testing. So those are the two things that you can do. And for unit testing, you don't even need storybook. And even for UI testing, you don't need storybook. You have a lot of other. Some people even use Cypress to run like tests, like clicking this button, clicking this. You can also do it. This is a new feature. You can also do it in Storybook. Like when you load the story, clicking this button, writing some text automatically, you can do that. But some people, they go beyond that. They use tools like Cypress to actually log in people, log out people automatically with the bots. So yeah.
네.
Cypress.
IO. 네. 질문 있으신 분?
발표 잘 들었고요. 궁금한 점이 스토리북을 관리하는 담당자가 주로 디자이너인지 프론트엔드인지가 좀 궁금해요.
The person in charge of your project is any designer or publisher?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it depends on the company. I know a lot of company where the designers, they are like the chief. So when designers say, oh, we want like this, developers, they don't have much power. In other companies, in other companies, I know designer, they come up with something, but if the developers, no, we don't want that. Developers have power. So by everyone nothing, I understood that your designer have power. That's the good way, because developers, so they don't talk to each other. It's like, oh, they finished the design. Because they know that the developers, they will say something. And what I try to do is the person that will talk to the I have everything you've seen here, the design, I made the design, I didn't ask another person to do it, I built the code and everything. So people like that, they are rare, and for the people in the code, but can also I forgot to say, but it's very important in the key takeaways. One thing that I would advise everyone to do is you are a developer, try to design. So you but be very easy thinking, oh, design is fine, I take this rectangle and you know, and software engineers, they don't have this creativity, they are very logical. It's a 0-1, but you know, I have a lot of designers that an art background, so you know, even some were painters or did some education in painting, or so they are the exact opposite of me. I have a master's degree in CS, so this is the only thing I'm good at, you know, computing science. That's it. So when you have people that are, I mean, there's so many designers, you know, they give the design, and you know, when you use the tool, you see 24 pixel, 20 pixel. So you know, is it 23, 24? And I'm sure it happens to everyone. So if you are a developer, try to design. You will understand that it's not very hard. Even it's not. It's. I mean, you will find that it's hard. And by doing it, you will understand. You will be better to be able to talk with designers. You will be more humble. Like I know some people that are like, oh, designers, you know, it's easy, just do this. But when you try it, it's actually hard. And if you are a designer, or even if you know designers, ask them to try to design and code. And they will see that coding is not just it doesn't work like that. You need some logic. And if people try to do go to the other side, I think it's best of worlds, because you will not have this wall anymore. You have people that can jump that wall, designers, you know, and it will be better for everyone. So in companies, I believe the designers should be the leaders, because what I'm always saying is, when we start a new project, we start a new design, I'm always like, think that we can do everything. So they don't have this constraint in mind to like, okay, I have to think about, you're free, just use your creativity. And then this is why you need to talk to people along the way. They start doing this, check on the back, say, okay, that's nice. And then, you know, maybe that be more logical, help them to be better. That would be my, so a good designer should rule, because, you know, we are not that great to rule as developers. We are better at following design, but yeah, let their creativity shine. But when they do something that doesn't make any sense, don't be scared. Don't wait the end when it's online and people are using it. Say, oh, this is a good thing. You know, be proactive, and you will only able to do this if you start to design a little. Try design, try Figma. It doesn't have to be complicated, but just enough to understand that design is not only dragging and dropping shapes and circle, and that's it.
네, 답변이
잘 되셨겠죠? 네, 긴 답변이었는데 제가 다 번역은 못하고요.
그럼 발표해 주신 플로리안 박수 한번